expecting two things,
Okay.
before the March 3rd sitting. I was
Mm.
expecting that, yes, we're going to submit our written addresses, and
Mhm.
I was expecting that it was going to be a very brief, very short session. Councils would just go to adopt their written addresses and would leave. I was also expecting that the court was going to announce a date for the judgment.
Mm.
So when court started and court ended, and the judge did not announce a date, but he said that the secretary of the tribunal uh, was going to communicate to us with the dates. I said, okay, well, it's still fine, but it was a very exciting court, session. The debate was solid, you know, the debate was really solid. And, I'm happy with the way the counsel for INEC, because he was the one who started his adumbrations. And he was the one who asked the court that instead of us just coming to adopt written addresses, why don't you give us some time, to summarize the words he used to adumbrate, and let us, speak to the points that we've raised. And I found that very interesting.
Okay.
These are senior lawyers, these are older folks who have been doing this thing for years. And he said, George, the profession is dying if we just don't allow enough time for lawyers to adumbrate their submissions and to argue a little bit. And I said, yes, I mean, I'm all for the argument. I love to argue. So
I know say
so
you they
he,
like
oh
argue.
yes, oh yes. When everywhere is too quiet and everybody's
It's not
agreeing
good
to
for
one thing,
life.
it's not healthy at all. And everybody's saying, I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. In my mind, I'm looking for the thing to disagree with. There must be something, So he went ahead, and the other counsels for the respondents took their turns to tell the courts why they think our petition should be thrown out. But even as they made their argument, you could see smiles on the faces of the other lawyers, saying that, well, the point that he just raised, that's not a strong point like that, because we've been in cases before where that issue was struck out because there was not enough evidence, to throw out a petition. But the baba of it all was when Ken Moja SAN was responding to the respondents. I've always known, Kamoja to be a very sound lawyer. I did not know that he was that amazing, to be very honest. And after the court session, many people shared that same view that, man, this man killed this thing, brought in so much steeze, brought in so much intelligence, finesse, and exactitude to all the. He was trashing their opposition to our petition one after the other, and he
Hmm.
was citing references where the Supreme Court had made judgments to counter what you just raised.
Hmm.
He was making references to appeal court judgments that have already addressed the issue that you have raised. He was also making references to even tribunal judgments that have addressed this issue that you've raised. And I mean, at the end of his own adumbration, I felt like, I should go study law because, I know I'm getting old, but, maybe I can still put some, 10 years into this law thing and become an SAN, you know.
Yes.
Now, I really fell in love with the law profession, hearing how men have intelligently, marshaled out their points. And I
Hmm.
couldn't be more hopeful and excited that and that's the one beautiful thing is as I
Yes.
saw Kemoja SAN speak, I was carefully looking at the faces of the counsel to the APC and the counsel to Mondo Perolo. And at every point in time, I could see this smile on their face when Kemoja would say something. The smile of, oh, this guy don't catch us for this place. You know, that kind of smile. And then they will whisper to one another, and I was just so excited. So I want the Edo people to understand one thing, that we chose the best hands for this petition. And Ken Mosier has a history, he has a reputation. He is not one that has lost many battles at the Supreme Court. He is not one that has lost any Supreme Court judgment that has to do with election petition.
Hmm.
So he has that
Yes.
history. He has that reputation. And do you know what? He put together, colleagues that are just like him. We had over 14, sons, help us to put forward our petition and all that. Very intelligent men from across the country. And these men have spent the last maybe 20 years on election petition matters.
Hmm.
So every I was dotted, every T was
Yes.
crossed. So make sure that there is no issue of technicality anywhere.
Please
And
repeat that
why
one. Just repeat that phrase.
to make
That
sure
there is
that
what?
every I was dotted and every T was crossed. So make sure that there are no issues of technicalities anywhere at all in our petition. So there was all the while from the last, well, from the penultimate sitting to the last sitting, one of our sons has been on ground all through. Do you know what he's been doing? He's been checking all Supreme Court judgments for election petitions, all Supreme Court judgments, trying to search for technicalities, where they've used technicalities, where they've used technicalities. So he did all that to make sure that our final written address was watertight. Can you hear me? So he made sure that our final written address was watertight, and then it was presented. And I found so much faith, so much faith in what we did, and I'm hopeful, very
I
hopeful.
think
Something interesting happened at the beginning of sitting that day. Can you hear me? It looks like those who don't want to
I can
those
hear
who don't
you
want to
now.
hear
My
our
internet
story.
has been
Okay. Hmm.
they have been struggling with us, but I can hear you now. You said something happened, something interesting happened that day.
Tell them that joy is coming. Nothing can touch your internet. Joy is
Nothing
coming.
can touch our joy. It's coming.
So there was something that happened, something interesting that happened. And when I was hearing the way our friends on the other side were spinning it, I felt um, I felt very sorry for them. You know, felt truly concerned that our friends in the APC are barely literate. And so we have to make sure we break things down for them, in a way they can understand, so they can feed their principal in Benin with correct information. Because I've listened to him talk on TV, and when he's asked about the tribunal sitting, he goes about saying the very lame things they say on social media. What they're saying is hearsay. Oh, how they didn't bring people who were present at the polling units. And I just pray for him that God would open their minds to understand what happens. So this is exactly what happened. When the third respondent, now the counsel to the APC, submitted to us their final written address, we noticed that there were specifications that they did not follow.
Okay.
The specification says that in your written address, you must use size 14 of your fonts in typing your written address,
Okay.
and it must have double line spacing.
Mm.
So, but theirs failed on those two counts. So what we did was to file a motion before the tribunal, asking the tribunal to strike out the third respondent's final written address because it failed to meet some guidelines. So So, in an attempt to respond to our motion, they filed a counter motion, also asking the courts to strike out our, our final written address. And so, when we appeared in courts, you know, and we were trying to bring up the matter before the tribunal, because we knew exactly, what was wrong. We knew that we were right, and so we wanted to, argue the matter. But the counsel to Mondo Perilo, Ikazu SAN Onyinyechi, advised that, well, we understand that the mistake has been made, but this mistake that they made is not a very significant mistake that can alter the outcome of this judgment. There are three respondents. One of them failed to follow those guidelines. So please, begging the PDP, why don't you just, forgive that error? Let us move on. Because if we spend so much time now discussing this motion, they discuss their own, it will take the time of the court. And we came here to adopt our final written addresses.
Okay.
So we looked at them and we had pity, for them. And so we said, okay, let us drop our motion. Let's withdraw our motion while they also withdraw their motion. And when motions like that are withdrawn by parties, the tribunal strikes out the motion. This was what happened, and our friends on the other side went about telling their folks back at home that the tribunal has struck out the PDP's motion and so will be ruling in their favor, you know. And so I just had to pray for them, that more enlightenment and education will be bestowed upon them.
Brother, this one past prayer, they need to go to school. Anyway, keep
Well,
going.
yeah, they believe that school is scam. So what can we do? We have to seek for an external divine help, for our friends there. So that was basically what happened. But we went ahead. All parties went ahead to give their final submissions, and it became a very relaxed atmosphere when we had all finished. We're cracking jokes and all, so that was the tension. And then the tribunal chairman said they were going to communicate to us and give us a date for the judgment. And so we're hopeful. And the tribunal comes to an end, or it would elapse on the 8th of April. That's the final day. So judgment must come before the 8th of
Right.
April. We are thinking that, in 2 weeks, max 3 weeks, they should, have the ruling. So I hope that before the end of March, we would get to hear the judgment so that the APC can go and file their appeal at the appeal courts. Because we want to. Well, we're also hearing too that they may not file an appeal, saying that the evidence will be so overwhelming. But, if they still intend to do, we want them to have the time to go file their appeal. Because after the appeal, when we win at the appeal court, they will have to also go to file at the Supreme Court. And when we also win at the Supreme Court, I don't know where else they will want to appeal to, So we would have to have a unity government of some sort, so that they can also come in to learn from Asue Ighodalo the rudiments of democratic leadership in today's Nigeria.
Honorable Obede, value you see, but you are plenty.